This graph shows the entire history of the official electricity cost predictions for the Edinburgh duct system. We're not making any changes for inflation, so these are the numbers that were produced at the time. We're plotting from 1970 up to the year 2000 along this axis, and vertically we've got the cost in pence per kilowatt hour, but we're using a log scale, which is a very good idea for the early stages of any renewable energy source. Well, the first cost estimate was produced by Rendell, Palmer and Tritton in 1978, and it was getting on for 50 pence a kilowatt hour, which was clearly unacceptable, but actually not all that far away from the index-linked cost of the first electricity produced by Ferranti in the 19th century. After a year of work, we were down to about 10 pence per kilowatt hour in ETSU R9, and another couple of years we got it down to 5.6 pence in a report by Rendell, Palmer and Tritton in 81. This has received very, very little publicity. Then at a conference in Norway, Clive Grove Palmer, who was the manager based at Harwell of the WAVE programme, predicted 3.3 pence for the duct system, and several other devices were also getting very close. We were delighted with this, and we thought we'd done a great job, and we were hoping for wonderful things, but in fact the programme was shut down in March 1982 following a meeting of the very powerful ACORD committee from which Grove Palmer was excluded. Normally he went along to them. In June 83, Rendell, Palmer and Tritton brought out another report which had appalling availability figures for the duct system. In fact, there was no electricity going to come out at all, so you could argue that the cost was infinite, and therefore it wouldn't even show up on the log scale. There were a number of disputed facts in this availability calculation, and there were a lot of arguments, people looking at it again, sort of, we was robbed. Various people had to go, and there was a whole cluster of predictions round about 4 or 5 pence. Eventually there were a series of parliamentary questions, and it was agreed that there should be another overall assessment carried out by a chap called Tom Thorpe, who was again based at Harwell. And the first thing he did was to do a rerun of the Rendell, Palmer and Tritton predictions back from 83, but using a theoretical 100% availability, which clearly is the ideal, which we couldn't ever quite get. And he came up with 4.3 pence. He then worked out his own methodology for cost predictions, which took material estimates from W.S. Atkins. It took availability calculations from a specialist company called AME, and he put together tank testing and wave climate predictions and interest rates and everything like that to produce answers. And initially things looked pretty good, but they then discovered an appalling problem about sending power along the inside of the spine in the dry bit. All the wet bit was okay, and we made a terrible mistake there, and we found that we couldn't send electricity along the spines if any one of the members was out of action. By adding a second down feeder, we got this cluster of points down to here, and by further improvements we were able to get numbers back down to the 4 or 5 pence, but unfortunately this information wasn't allowed to be included in the final report, so the programme was shut down a second time. There were a group of people in Brussels who decided that this wasn't a terribly good idea, and with support from DG12 we managed to continue work, particularly in connection with the power takeoff with clever computer-controlled hydraulics. And we came across a new seal material by a company called Hydrodyne in Holland that allowed us to do away with the gyros, which are a great cost, and we could get a power takeoff that was sealed in seawater. We also improved the power conversion control using complex conjugate, and all these things bundled together produced cost predictions round about here for 1998. This is assuming that we have to pay the bankers 8% on the money we borrow. This is paying them back 15%, which are fairly realistic for renewable energy. And here we are, we're around about the 3 pence a kilowatt hour.